Eagles are a band which started more than 4 decades ago. Along with being the highest-selling American band in U.S. history, they had 6 #1 albums and 6 Grammy Awards. The group originally sprouted from LA's rock scene. The members consisted of Glenn Frey, Randy Meisner, Don Henley, and Bertie Leadon. All original 4 members came from already professional bands, which were popular up until the band started. All 4 of them worked as a backup band for Linda Ronstadt. Then Henley and Frey decided to depart and recruited Meisner and Leadon. The band formed in 1971 with Don Henley as the drummer, Glenn Frey with lead guitar, and also Bertie Leadon with lead guitar, and Randy Meisner with bass and vocals. But let's first start with the beginning on how the story happened. Glenn Frey grew up in Detroit, Michigan. He started taking piano lessons when he was 5. He quotes that alone he could get beat up in suburban Detroit, just for doing anything. He also grew up listening to Motown. He stopped playing piano when he was 12. Both him and Henley at some point went to a Beatles concert, and to them, they claimed it was revolutionary. It had a huge impact on both of them.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something, I think you'll understand when I say that something. I wanna hold your hand, I wanna hold your hand, I wanna hold.
Don Henley grew up in a small town called Linden, Texas. It was a small town in northeastern Texas. Population was about 2,000 at the time. It was primarily an agriculture area. According to Henley, it was a culture crossroad. Henry exclaims it's where the Old South meets the Old West. Linden, Texas was the birthplace of Scott Joplin and T-Bone Walker, big jazz and folk players. His parents loved music. They kept stacks of records in their house. His ordinance with drums started in school, where he made little drum cadences in class. He managed to put together a ragtag drum kit from the band room in his high school, but finally his mom drove him an hour to a music company called Makey Music Company. Much to his surprise, she bought him a set of Red Sparkle Singerland drums, which he still has today. He says, "I have to give them credit. They bought me the drum kit even though I couldn't afford it." Glenn Frey played in some high school bands. Then in Detroit, he met Bob Seger. He took Frey under his wing into recording sessions. That's where Frey learned the way of music. Later in the 60s, after both meeting well-known artists and booking in California, both Frey and Henley, they both wound up in the same record label, Amos Records.
Well, I heard some people talking just the other day, and they said you were gonna put me on a shelf. But let me tell you, I got some news for you, and you'll soon find out it's true, and then you'll have to.
Eventually they started going to the Troubadour, where various artists like Elton John played. It was the ideal place to get seen. One of their favorites there was Linda Ronstadt. Soon both Henley and Frey got involved with Linda and joined her band. They did gigs here and there. They did really good things. Also, they were liked by much people and they're very popular. Also, Linda Ronstadt very liked Don Henley and Glenn Frey. Originally, the producers of the band wanted to make it a super band, but they both came to a conclusion that Henley and Frey wanted to make their own band, so they didn't make their own band. They did. Linda was supportive, and recommended Bernie Leadon, who was amazing banjo and acoustic, and she also recommended Randy Meisner, who played in a band called Poco and could sing really high and also played bass. Then they went to the owner of Asylum Records, Dave Geffen, to see if they could get a contract. Keep in mind, Asylum was a brand new label and had many good talented artists. Then, after demanding a place in the record label, with Bernie Leadon's hard, mean demeanor, they all of a sudden were signed. Eventually, Geffen sent them to Aspen, Colorado to see and learn how to play together, and they struggled, but they managed to find a sound.
Daddy was a handsome devil. He had a chain 5 miles long. From every link a heart did dangle. For every maid he loved and wronged. 1, 2, 3.
Finally, they got famous producer Glenn Johns from London to check them out. After crashing and redoing rehearsals, they managed to get his signature and they shipped him off to London. Johns in the past had worked with Led Zeppelin and The Who, along with the Stones, so the Eagles were very honored to work in the historic studio in London. The first hit was Peaceful Easy Feeling. Then came Witchy Woman. During the time, the U.S. came out of the 60s with assassinations and civil rights. And with Vietnam wrapping up, the youngest generation at the time needed a song. And there came Take It Easy. The success of the first album surprised them greatly. After the album, the Eagles got inspiration from outlaws in the West and jokingly compared themselves to them. This is where we get unique album Desperado. On the album cover you can see 4 young talented disciples planning their way with music. All effort was given to this album, with Bernie Leadon's amazing acoustics to Randy Meisner's genius lyrics, to a song about a young outlaw that had a ratchet life. But the biggest surprise to this song came with Tequila Sunrise, which had the band's beautiful harmonies along with Glenn Frey to take the lead on the vocals. The track was composed by Don Henley and Glenn Frey, who would soon become the powerhouses of the band. And finally came Desperado, a lyrically softening song with Henley's sweet mellow voice to push back to its limit.
Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? You've been out riding fences for so long now.
But what popularized this song was Linda Ronstadt's remake of Joyce and Amplitude of Flushing, which is why Desperado is still a classic today. If it wasn't for Linda Ronstadt, it'd kind of be an iffy song. But after months of touring, the Eagles left the U.S. and went back to England to record On the Border, their third album with Glenn Johns. But before they started, there was a mishap. They wanted to be more rock and roll, so Glenn Johns didn't want them to. So they met with the producer in the U.S. and recorded with him. While touring On the Border, the Eagles were swapping lead guitar players. Because of this shake-up, their kind of country rock music, they decided they wanted another guitarist, so they hired Don Felder, an amazing guitarist, and he revolutionized the band greatly. While rock and roll was rushing through the much cocaine-induced band, Bernie Leadon, as mostly country bluegrass kind of guy, was feeling left out. From one situation to another, him and Glenn Frey had feuded over the band's image, With Henley's support for Fry, Bernie lost and left the band. Soon after having the same manager and concerting with guitar legend Joe Walsh, the Eagles found a new image to accelerate their image as a rock and roll band. Fourth album was One of These Nights, with the album being the first Eagles record to hit #1 on the Billboard chart. It was exciting and interesting at the same time.
One of these nights, one of these crazy.
The record included Don Felder's one and only track where he sang lead vocals on it. It also included Randy Meisner's best and Eagles' first #1 song, Take It to the Limit. Where sky seems the limit for Meisner and his angel-like voice. The main track on this album, One of These Nights, was just light. It had a disco and reggae melody to it, and Henley's fading vocals. The album was also the breaking point for the corny rock band. This was the last album to feature more country theme songs than rock songs, and it worked very well. Then came the next album. While in a hotel in Malibu, Don Felder wrote and recorded the single most age-ultrafying track of the century, Hotel California. His idea of it was to rock it with Joe Walsh, so he did. He came up with much of the melodies and most of the guitar on the track, but also Henley contributed. He lyrically wrote a lot and sang lead, and came up with Hotel California. The rest of the album developed around the track. Next came Victim of Love, the follow-up to Hotel California. It's a chord progression by Don Felder and sung by Henley to record the track on, but his vocals did not match out on Henley's, so Don took over. This further on both of them great. They disliked each other. Like many other songs, Life in the Fast Lane developed from a warm-up and excelled with its guitar riff, and soon became a #1 hit. If it wasn't for Joe Walsh, Life in the Fast Lane would have never happened. Walsh's amazing talent with guitar and his interesting, talented mind to come up with all these beautiful riffs is just amazing. During touring for Hotel California, Randy Meisner had trouble hitting high notes on his hit song Take It to the Limit, and decided to quit the band with anger from Glenn Fry. To replace Meisner, the Eagles took Timothy Schmidt from Poco, who already replaced Meisner when he was in Poco, so that was that. They did that in 1977. or 1978. After Hotel California, the band was dumbstruck, with madness and tempers towards each other. All creativity had lost their minds, but new member Timothy Schmidt had something new. With a catchy piano and simple drumming, the song became one of the greatest hits from the long run. Then the track titled Heartache Tonight came with a burst of fire, a fire that ended the Eagles. It was about feuds in the band, and the band ended up breaking up in 1981, the starting of the disco age. In my opinion, the Eagles would have struggled to make hits in this generation, but they made a mark which inspired many bands. The music which will be listened to for a long time. So we love the Eagles. But finally, after 13 years, the band reformed in 1994. With expectations of both Don and Glenn, they invited all current and once members to join them in tour. Most members joined back, except a select few. Joe Walsh had been addicted to coke and vodka and was on his melting point. Also his breaking point. But when he got a call to join and to be sober, he hesitated. All those years with drugs had a big effect on him, mentally and physically. Yet after calls from all members, especially Don Felder, his best friend, he got sober and toured with the band. And he claims that's what saved his life. With songwrites bullying over Don Henley and Don Felder's Hotel California, Felder left the band again in 2001. Both filed for lawsuit for Hotel California, and Henley won. With these, as Felder wrote the riff and melodies, Henley sang, wrote, and came up with the title of the track, as he did on Victim of Love. The band kept touring until 2016, when Glenn Frey died of many bad things like acute ulcerative colitis and pneumonia, while recovering from gastrostomal tract surgery. Later in 2018, his widow sued the hospital for wrongful death. Not much is known, though, today. After his death, his son Deacon Frey took over, and the band continues the tour today. While In Rock and Roll was rushing through the much cocaine-induced band, Bertie Leadon, a mostly country bluegrass kind of guy, was feeling left out. From one situation to another, him and Glenn Frey feuded over the band's image, and with Henley's support for Frey, Bernie lost and left the band. But soon after having the same manager and concerting guitar legend Joe Walsh, the Eagles found a new image to accelerate their image as a rock and roll band. Then came the next album. While in a hotel in Malibu, Don Felder wrote and recorded the single most age-ultrifying track of the century, Hotel California. His idea of it was to rock it with Joe Walsh and come up with good melodies, and so he did. But also Henley contributed. He lyrically wrote a lot and sang lead, and came up with Hotel California. The rest of the album developed around the track. Next came Victim of Love, a follow-up to Hotel California with a chord progression by Don Felder, and written and sung by Don Henley. But with controversy through the band, once again, Felder felt like he did his part and demanded to record on the track. But his vocals did not match Henley's, so Don took over, and this furthered both of them greatly. Like many other songs, Life in the Fast Lane developed from a warm and excelled with its guitar riff, and so became a #1 hit. During touring for Hotel California, Randy had trouble hitting high notes on his song, Take It to the Limit, and quit the band with anger from Glenn Frey.